Do not rewrite the story while the camera is still recording. Brigadier General Naomi Carter spoke with such controlled certainty that Officer Grant Holloway instinctively glanced toward the dashboard camera mounted behind his windshield. The late afternoon sun stretched across the damp Virginia roadway, turning the damaged paint along both vehicles into a bright, undeniable line. Naomi's black sedan rested at an angle near the shoulder, its left side marked where the patrol car had crossed into her lane. Holloway's cruiser sat several feet behind it, engine running, emergency lights flashing across the wet pavement. No one appeared injured. Yet the silence between them carried the weight of something far more dangerous than an ordinary traffic collision. Holloway stepped closer, his uniform neat, his expression already arranged into the calm authority he planned to place inside his report. "You changed lanes without warning," he said. "You struck a police vehicle." Naomi looked at the position of the tires, the direction of the paint transfer, and the camera still facing the road. "That is not what happened. I decide what happened here." His words came too quickly, as though he had spoken them before. Naomi stood beside her sedan in a navy blazer, white blouse, and dark trousers, appearing to Holloway like an ordinary black professional who had wandered too close to a restricted military district. He did not know her rank. He did not know why she had left the Federal Logistics Facility 12 minutes earlier. He did not know the locked briefcase inside her vehicle contained copies of records powerful people had spent months trying to hide. Most importantly, he did not know her government sedan had transmitted an encrypted collision alert the moment his cruiser crossed the lane and made contact. Holloway pointed toward the rear of his patrol car. "Stand over there and keep your hands where I can see them." Naomi complied without hesitation. Her calmness seemed to irritate him. "Who owns this vehicle?" he asked. "The registration is available inside." "That was not my question." "Then ask the question you intend to document." His jaw tightened. A light wind moved through the tall grass beyond the shoulder, carrying the distant smell of rain and diesel fuel. Holloway glanced toward the sedan's rear compartment. "Open the trunk." "Do you have legal grounds to search the vehicle?" "You are near a military facility with a government-style car and a locked case." "That gives me enough reason." Naomi studied him carefully. His suspicion was too specific. He knew there was a case inside. That meant the collision had not been random. Somewhere between the warehouse gate and this isolated road, someone had told him which vehicle to stop. Holloway reached for his radio, then stopped when a low vibration rolled beneath their feet. At first, it sounded like distant thunder. Then it grew deeper, steadier, mechanical. The water gathered in shallow cracks along the pavement began to tremble. Holloway turned toward the eastern curve of the highway. Naomi did not. She already understood what was coming. One dark armored vehicle appeared beyond the trees, followed by another, then another, each moving in disciplined formation beneath the fading sky. Holloway stared as the line continued until 11 armored vehicles filled the road behind them, their engines echoing across the empty fields. They did not arrive with sirens. No one displayed aggression. They simply took positions around the scene, leaving every exit visible and every camera protected. Holloway looked from the convoy to Naomi, and for the first time, the authority in his face gave way to uncertainty. He had believed one patrol car could force the truth off the road. He was about to learn why 11 others had come to keep it there. 12 minutes earlier, Naomi Carter had driven away from the Federal Logistics Facility beneath a sky still bright with the last light of afternoon. The rain had passed less than an hour before, leaving the roads dark, reflective, and almost empty. Her black sedan moved at exactly 45 miles per hour along the industrial corridor, its headlights cutting across warehouses, fenced storage yards, and long stretches of grass bending in the wind. On the passenger seat rested a plain leather briefcase secured by an electronic lock. To anyone watching from outside, it looked like an ordinary business case. Inside were duplicate inventory records, access logs, transfer approvals, and photographs linking missing military equipment to a local law enforcement network. Naomi had spent 7 weeks examining the numbers. At first, the discrepancies had seemed minor. A protective vehicle component listed under the wrong serial number. A communication system assigned to a department that had never received it. Maintenance records signed by people who denied seeing the equipment. Then the same names began appearing across separate files. Captain Douglas Vance was one of them. Officer Grant Holloway was another. Naomi had not yet told the local department that the review had become a formal investigation. She wanted the records secured before anyone had time to alter them. That caution was the reason she wore civilian clothing, drove an unmarked government sedan, and carried only copies in the briefcase. The original files were already stored on a protected federal server. What Naomi did not know was that someone inside the logistics facility had noticed her request for the final transfer ledger. Less than 2 minutes after she passed through the main gate, Captain Vance received a short message from an employee who believed loyalty mattered more than law. Federal auditor leaving now. Black sedan. One locked case. Vance read the message twice before calling Holloway, who was patrolling 3 miles east of the facility. A vehicle may be carrying restricted property, Vance said. Keep it on the road until I arrive. Holloway asked for a license plate number. Vance gave it to him. Do not search unless you have a reason. Just stop the car. Holloway understood the instruction, but he did not intend to wait for a reason. He had built his career by turning assumptions into official facts. A nervous driver became suspicious behavior. A question became refusal to cooperate. A routine object became probable cause when described with enough confidence. He entered the plate number into his dashboard system and accelerated toward the industrial highway. Naomi saw the patrol car appear in her rearview mirror after the second intersection. It remained 4 car lengths behind her through the first traffic light, then moved closer when she turned onto the 2-lane road leading toward the training grounds. She checked her speed. 45. She checked the lane markings. Clear. She used her signal before every turn. The patrol car still followed. Naomi did not know whether the officer had been sent by Vance or had simply selected her vehicle, but the timing was too exact to ignore. She touched a control on the steering wheel, activating the sedan's continuous incident recorder. A quiet tone confirmed that the front, rear, and side cameras were saving to a remote server. Holloway followed her through another mile of wet pavement, waiting for a mistake she never made. His radio remained silent. His emergency lights stayed off. He could have ordered her to pull over. He could have documented a lawful stop and waited for Vance. Instead, frustration began replacing patience. Naomi was driving carefully. No sudden turns. No speeding. No broken light. No excuse. Holloway moved closer until the cruiser filled her rearview mirror. Naomi kept both hands steady on the wheel. Then she saw him shift left, accelerate, and angle toward her lane. In that instant, she understood he was no longer waiting for a reason to stop her. He was preparing to manufacture one. Naomi saw the cruiser cross the painted line and reacted before instinct could turn into panic. She eased her sedan toward the shoulder, reduced her speed, and kept the steering wheel steady, refusing to make the sudden movement Holloway seemed to expect. The patrol car continued forward until its front corner brushed along the side of her vehicle with a sharp scrape of metal and paint. Naomi maintained control, guided the sedan onto the wet shoulder, and brought it to a complete stop beneath a row of utility poles. Behind her, Holloway stopped several feet away and activated his emergency lights. Red and blue colors swept across the pavement as if the road itself had already accepted his version of events. Naomi checked her breathing, then looked at the vehicle display. The collision sensor showed no serious damage and no sign of injury. More importantly, the incident recorder confirmed that every camera was still transmitting to the protected server. She left the engine running, placed both hands where they were visible, and waited. Holloway stepped out of the cruiser with his shoulders squared and his expression prepared. Before reaching her window, he lifted his radio. "Dispatch, I have a vehicle that struck my unit near the training corridor," he said. "Possible restricted property involved. Send another officer and notify Captain Vance." Naomi heard every word through the lowered glass. He had not inspected the scene. He had not asked whether she was all right. Yet he had already decided who caused the collision and what he intended to find. "Turn off the engine and step out," he ordered. Naomi complied slowly. "Are you injured, officer?" "Do not change the subject. Safety is the first subject after a collision." Holloway looked at her as though professionalism from a black woman was another form of disobedience. "You moved into my lane." Naomi glanced toward the long mark along her sedan. The paint transfer began near the rear door and continued forward, a direction that told its own story. "Your vehicle approached from behind," she said. That mark will show the direction of contact. I will determine what the evidence shows. The evidence has already determined that. His eyes moved toward the briefcase visible through the passenger window. What is inside the case? Documents. What kind of documents? Protected government records. Holloway paused. The answer appeared to confirm whatever Captain Vance had told him. Open the vehicle. Do you have a warrant or a lawful basis for a search? You just struck a police cruiser near a military facility while carrying restricted material. Naomi looked at his dashboard camera. Then you should preserve every recording from the last 10 minutes. Holloway followed her gaze and seemed to remember the camera for the first time. His hand moved toward the cruiser door, but another vehicle appeared around the curve before he could reach it. Sergeant Olivia Ramirez arrived without sirens and parked behind him. She stepped out, surveyed the tire positions, and examined the scrape along Naomi's sedan before speaking. Who crossed the line? She asked. Holloway answered immediately. She did. Ramirez crouched near the painted mark on the road, then looked at the angle of the cruiser. That does not match the vehicle positions. Holloway lowered his voice. I need you to secure the driver while I check the car. Ramirez stood. Did she consent to a search? She is refusing to cooperate. Naomi remained still. I asked for the legal basis. Ramirez studied her, then noticed a metal identification plate beneath the protective guard on Holloway's cruiser. She wiped rainwater from the surface and read the serial code. Her expression changed. This component has a military property number. Holloway stepped between her and the vehicle. It was transferred legally. Naomi recognized the number from the missing inventory list inside her briefcase. At that moment, the collision stopped being merely an attempt to delay her. Holloway was driving a patrol car equipped with the very property she had been sent to trace. The officer trying to seize her records was already carrying evidence of the network on his own vehicle. Holloway moved quickly to reclaim control of the scene. Sergeant Ramirez, step away from the cruiser, he said. That equipment was approved through the department. Ramirez remained beside the front guard, her eyes fixed on the stamped property number. Then there should be a transfer record. There is. I can verify it through dispatch. Holloway's expression tightened. You can verify it after we secure the driver and search her vehicle. Naomi watched the exchange without interrupting. The road was quiet except for the idling engines and the soft ticking of cooling metal. Holloway had expected Ramirez to support his report without questions. Instead, she had found the one detail he could not explain with confidence. He turned toward Naomi and pointed to a place near the rear of his patrol car. Stand there. Naomi moved exactly where he directed. Keep your hands visible. She did. Who authorized you to carry government documents? He asked. The issuing agency. Which agency? That information is protected. Holloway gave Ramirez a look meant to suggest that Naomi was hiding something dangerous. You hear that? She admits she is carrying restricted material and refuses to identify who gave it to her. Naomi spoke evenly. I said the information is protected. I did not say the documents were unlawful. That distinction will not matter when I write the report. It will matter when the recording is reviewed. His eyes shifted toward the dashboard camera again. Ramirez noticed. Your camera is active, correct? She asked. It should be. Then no one needs to argue about the collision. Holloway stepped closer to the cruiser. The file can be reviewed later. Right now, we have a vehicle near a military installation, a driver refusing a lawful search, and a locked case containing unknown documents. Naomi looked toward Ramirez. I have not refused a lawful search. I have asked him to identify the legal basis for one. Ramirez nodded slightly. That is not refusal. Holloway's voice hardened. Do not let her control the stop. I am trying to understand the stop, Ramirez replied. You said she crossed into your lane, but the marks suggest your cruiser approached her from behind. You said the protective guard was transferred legally, but you do not want the serial number checked. Now you want to search a government vehicle without confirming who assigned it. For the first time, Holloway seemed less concerned with Naomi than with the officer beside him. He lowered his voice. Captain Vance ordered this vehicle held. Ramirez looked surprised. Before or after the collision? Holloway did not answer. That silence changed the air between them. Naomi heard it clearly. So did the microphones built into her sedan. A delivery truck approached from the west and slowed as the driver saw the emergency lights. Holloway waved it forward, but the passenger raised a phone and recorded the scene through the window. Holloway immediately altered his posture. His shoulders relaxed. His voice became measured. "Ma'am, for everyone's safety, I need you to cooperate." Naomi had not moved. She understood the performance. He was no longer speaking to her. He was speaking to the camera across the road and to the report he intended to write later. "I am cooperating," she said. "I have followed every instruction. I have also requested that the vehicles, recordings, and roadway evidence be preserved. You do not give orders here. Preserving evidence is not an order. It is a reminder." Holloway reached for his radio and walked several feet away. "Captain, I have the target vehicle," he said quietly. "The driver has the case, but another unit is asking questions." Naomi could not hear Vance's response, but she saw Holloway look toward the eastern curve of the highway. "Understood," he said. "I will keep her here." Ramirez heard enough to step closer. "Target vehicle?" Holloway lowered the radio. Poor choice of words. Or an honest one. Beneath the fading sunlight, Naomi noticed a small green light appear on her sedan's side mirror. The encrypted collision alert had been acknowledged. Then a low mechanical vibration traveled through the pavement. Holloway turned toward the sound. Ramirez did the same. Beyond the trees, where the road curved near the training grounds, the first dark armored vehicle came into view, followed by another moving at the same measured distance. Naomi remained still. Holloway had spent the last several minutes trying to make her look suspicious. Now the road itself was about to reveal who had truly been expected. The first armored vehicle advanced at a controlled speed, followed by a second and a third, each maintaining the same precise distance as they rounded the eastern curve. Holloway stared at them, then looked toward Naomi as if her calm expression had become evidence of a plan he did not understand. "What did you call in?" he demanded. "I did not place a call." "Then why are they coming here?" Naomi glanced toward the green light on her sedan's mirror. The vehicle reported the collision automatically. Ramirez moved closer to the sedan but did not touch it. What kind of vehicle sends an alert to a military convoy? A government vehicle assigned to protected operations. Holloway seized on the answer. "So you admit this car belongs to the government?" "I never denied it." "And you are carrying restricted records?" "I said protected records." "That is enough for me." He reached toward the driver's door, but Ramirez stepped into his path. "Do not enter the vehicle until we establish authority and preserve the scene." Holloway looked at her with open disbelief. "You are interfering with an investigation. I am preventing an unsupported search after a disputed collision." The fourth armored vehicle appeared beyond the curve. Then the fifth. Their engines created a low, steady pressure that could be felt through the wet roadway, but the formation remained orderly. No sirens. No sudden movements. No threatening display. They were not arriving to confront anyone. They were arriving to protect a scene that Holloway had already begun trying to control. His radio sounded. Captain Vance's voice came through, tense and clipped. "Move the case before the convoy reaches you." Holloway turned the volume down, but not before Ramirez heard the instruction. Her eyes shifted toward the leather briefcase visible through the passenger window. "Why does Captain Vance know about that case?" she asked. Holloway ignored her. "The driver may possess stolen military documents." Naomi watched him carefully. How could he know what the case contains if no one has opened it? Holloway's silence lasted less than 2 seconds, but it was enough. Ramirez reached for her own radio. "Dispatch, preserve all audio from this channel and mark both patrol vehicles for evidence review." Holloway stepped closer. "Cancel that request." "No." The single word landed harder than any argument. Ramirez walked to the rear of his cruiser and photographed the military property number beneath the protective guard. She transmitted the image to dispatch, then requested an immediate serial verification. Holloway looked toward the approaching convoy, then toward the dashboard camera, calculating which evidence he could still reach before others arrived. Naomi recognized the pattern. The collision had been designed to stop her. The accusation had been designed to justify the search. The search would have allowed Holloway to seize the duplicate records before Captain Vance reached the road. But the missing military component on his own cruiser had created a second trap, one Holloway had carried into the scene himself. Dispatch responded through Ramirez's radio. Serial number confirmed. Property listed as unaccounted for during the last federal inventory review. No lawful transfer recorded to the department. Ramirez stared at Holloway. "You said it was approved." "That database is outdated." Then Captain Vance can explain the transfer. Holloway looked toward Naomi. His expression no longer carried easy authority. It carried recognition. He finally understood that she had not been traveling near the facility by accident. "Who are you?" he asked. Naomi did not answer. Not yet. 6 armored vehicles now filled the eastern stretch of road, with 5 more appearing behind them in perfect formation. Her briefcase remained locked. The remote camera files remained secure. Ramirez's request had preserved the radio traffic. Holloway had tried to create one false story, but every choice he made had opened another path back to the truth. The 11th armored vehicle cleared the curve and moved into position behind the others, completing a wide protective formation around the roadway without blocking emergency access. Each driver stopped at a measured distance. Engines remained running. Doors stayed closed. No one displayed a weapon or raised a voice. The convoy did not behave like a force preparing for confrontation. It behaved like a trained unit preserving a sensitive federal scene. Holloway watched the vehicles settle into place, his breathing shallower than before. "This is still my traffic stop," he said, though the words sounded less convincing now. Ramirez looked along the formation. It stopped being a normal traffic matter when dispatch confirmed missing military property on your cruiser. "That component has nothing to do with the collision," Naomi answered calmly. "It has everything to do with why the collision happened." Holloway turned toward her. "You do not know why anything happened. You followed a government vehicle from the facility, crossed into its lane, announced details about a locked case you had never opened, and contacted Captain Vance before establishing who caused the collision. Those are not separate coincidences." Ramirez raised her radio again. "Dispatch, confirm that all incoming units have been advised not to disturb the vehicle positions." The response came immediately. "Confirmed. Federal security has assumed responsibility for scene preservation. Local officers are to remain in place." Holloway stared at the radio. Federal security cannot take over a local collision. Naomi looked toward the cameras built into her sedan. "They are not taking over the collision. They are protecting evidence connected to an active federal review." Before Holloway could respond, the lead armored vehicle opened. A tall black officer in a field uniform stepped down, followed by 2 security personnel carrying tablets and evidence cases. Their movements were deliberate and calm. The officer crossed the roadway, paused near the damaged vehicles, and examined the scrape patterns without touching anything. He then looked toward Naomi, but she gave him the smallest possible shake of her head. "Not yet." He understood. "Major Ethan Blake." He introduced himself to Ramirez. "Joint Installation Security. We received an encrypted collision alert from a protected government vehicle." Ramirez nodded toward the sedan. "The driver says the patrol cruiser moved into her lane. The officer says the opposite. Both vehicles have recording systems, and the cruiser contains an unaccounted military component." Blake studied Holloway. "Then no vehicle moves until all digital records are copied." Holloway stepped forward. "I need access to that sedan. The driver may be carrying stolen documents." Blake remained composed. "What specific information supports that claim?" "Captain Vance notified me." "How did Captain Vance learn what was inside a locked case?" Holloway looked toward Naomi again, searching for an answer she had no intention of giving him. A dark sport utility vehicle appeared from the western end of the road and stopped beyond the convoy line. Captain Douglas Vance emerged in a department uniform, moving quickly toward the scene with a telephone still in his hand. His expression changed when he saw all 11 armored vehicles. "Everyone needs to calm down," Vance said. "This is a misunderstanding involving sensitive property." Naomi watched him carefully. He did not ask whether anyone was injured. He did not inspect the damaged vehicles. His first glance went directly to the briefcase inside her sedan. Blake noticed. Ramirez noticed. Holloway noticed that they noticed. Vance lowered his voice. "Officer Holloway, secure the case before this becomes more complicated." Ramirez activated her body camera. "Captain, that instruction is now being recorded." Vance stopped. The evening wind moved across the road, carrying the low sound of 11 engines idling in disciplined formation. Naomi finally stepped away from the patrol car and faced the 3 officers. Holloway had asked who she was. Vance clearly believed he already knew enough to fear what she carried. Major Blake stood waiting for permission to speak. The truth had reached the scene. But Naomi understood that revealing her rank too soon would allow Vance to call everything a misunderstanding. She needed him to explain one more thing first. She looked at the stolen military component attached to Holloway's cruiser, then at the captain who had ordered the case seized. "Captain Vance," she said, "tell everyone here why equipment reported missing from a federal inventory is mounted on this patrol vehicle." Captain Vance looked at the stamped metal plate beneath the cruiser guard, then at Ramirez's active body camera. For the first time since arriving, he seemed to understand that every answer could become evidence. "That component was transferred during a joint training program," he said. Naomi held his gaze, then named the authorization number. Vance glanced toward Holloway. "The paperwork is at headquarters. The federal inventory lists it as missing. Inventories are not always current." Major Blake stepped closer, tablet in hand. "This serial number was flagged 6 weeks ago. No transfer order exists." Vance's expression hardened. "You do not have jurisdiction over my department." Blake remained calm. "I have jurisdiction over federal military property." Ramirez looked from Vance to Holloway. "And I have a recorded instruction telling an officer to seize a locked case before establishing probable cause." Holloway moved quickly to interrupt. "The driver admitted the case contained protected documents." "After you already knew it was there," Naomi said. The road fell quiet except for the low rhythm of 11 engines. Vance turned toward her. "You are making serious accusations without identifying yourself." Naomi reached inside her blazer slowly, keeping both hands visible, and removed a leather credential case. She opened it beneath the fading light. The insignia and identification were clear. Brigadier General Naomi Carter, United States Army Office of the Inspector General. Major Blake straightened immediately and rendered a formal salute. "General Carter." The words changed the entire scene. Holloway stared at the credential case, then at the convoy surrounding the roadway. Vance's face lost color, but Naomi did not allow the silence to become theater. "Major Blake, remain at ease. This is an evidence scene, not a ceremony." Blake lowered his hand. Ramirez looked at Naomi with renewed understanding. "You were the federal auditor leaving the facility. I was conducting an unannounced review of military equipment transferred to local agencies." She turned toward Holloway. "The patrol component attached to your cruiser is part of that review." Holloway tried to recover. "I had no idea who she was." Naomi's expression remained steady. "That is not a defense. You should not need to know a person's rank before treating her lawfully." The sentence landed without anger, which made it harder to dismiss. Vance stepped forward. "General, this can be resolved administratively. The collision was unfortunate, and the equipment issue may be a clerical error." Naomi looked toward the sedan's damaged side. "The collision was recorded from 4 angles." She nodded toward Ramirez. "The radio traffic was preserved." Then she looked at the briefcase. "The case contains duplicate files showing unauthorized transfers, altered maintenance logs, and repeated access by officers under your command." Vance's controlled expression began to fracture. "Those documents may be incomplete. The originals are already secured on a federal server." Holloway turned toward him, realizing the case had never been the only copy. The entire effort to stop Naomi had been pointless from the beginning. Ramirez stepped toward her patrol car. "I am requesting an outside command officer and digital evidence technicians." Vance raised a hand. "You will do no such thing." Ramirez did not move. "That order conflicts with evidence preservation requirements." "Sergeant, think carefully about your career." She looked at the active camera on her uniform. "I am." Major Blake instructed the convoy security team to document every vehicle position, every visible serial number, and every person present. No one raised a voice. No one made a threat. The scene changed through procedure alone. Holloway's dashboard recording was copied first. The footage showed him following Naomi from the facility, accelerating behind her, crossing the lane, and making contact with the side of her sedan. The audio captured his call to Vance moments later. "Target vehicle stopped," Holloway had said. "The case is still inside." Ramirez heard the playback and closed her eyes briefly. Vance looked toward the road as though searching for an exit that no longer existed. Naomi faced both men. "You believe the convoy was the reason you lost control of this scene," she said. "It was not. The camera did that. These vehicles only made sure no one could erase what it saw." The copied dashboard footage changed the investigation from suspicion into sequence. frame by frame. It showed Holloway trailing Naomi from the federal facility, closing the distance when she obeyed every traffic rule, then moving across the painted line before the vehicles made contact. The audio added what the images could not. His call to Captain Vance came less than 30 seconds after the collision, before he had inspected the roadway or asked Naomi a single question. "The target vehicle is stopped," he had said. "The case is still inside." No one at the scene spoke when the recording ended. Ramirez preserved the file on 2 separate evidence drives, then transmitted a third encrypted copy to an independent state investigator. Major Blake documented the military component on Holloway's cruiser and compared its serial number with the missing inventory list. The match was exact. By midnight, federal evidence teams had secured transfer records, maintenance logs, department messages, and warehouse access histories. What appeared to be one stolen component quickly became a pattern. Communication units, protective vehicle parts, tracking equipment, and fuel cards had been removed from military storage, reassigned on paper, and quietly distributed through Captain Vance's department. Some items had been installed on patrol vehicles. Others had vanished entirely. The records also revealed why Holloway had been chosen to stop Naomi. He had handled earlier incidents in the same way. A driver was followed. A minor traffic event was created or exaggerated. The vehicle was searched. Property disappeared. The report always protected the officer and discredited the civilian. One name appeared repeatedly in those files: Marcus Hill. 2 years earlier, Marcus had been driving home from a delivery route when Holloway claimed he had struck a patrol cruiser and attempted to leave. The damage pattern had never supported the report, but the camera file was listed as corrupted, and Marcus lost his commercial driving position after the charge. When federal investigators contacted him, he still had photographs from the scene stored on an old telephone. The images showed the same directional paint transfer found on Naomi's sedan. Marcus had spent years believing no one would ever compare the two events. Now someone finally had. Ramirez agreed to give a complete statement about unexplained vehicle stops, missing recordings, and orders from Vance to avoid documenting equipment transfers. Her testimony led investigators to 3 additional officers who had remained silent because they feared retaliation. Naomi did not praise them for waiting. She reminded them that accountability began only when silence ended. Holloway was removed from active duty while the case proceeded. Vance lost access to department systems and federal property programs. Neither man was judged at the roadside, and Naomi refused to let the convoy become a symbol of intimidation. The 11 vehicles had established a secure perimeter, preserved the scene, and then returned to the training grounds. The real consequences came later through warrants, interviews, verified records, and testimony that could withstand public scrutiny. Over the following months, Marcus's case was reopened, along with 6 other traffic incidents connected to Holloway. Charges based on altered or unsupported evidence were dismissed. Employment records were corrected. Families received formal notices acknowledging that the original investigations had failed. None of it restored every lost opportunity, but the truth was no longer trapped inside reports written by the same people who caused the harm. Naomi stood outside the federal building after the first group of cases was cleared and watched Marcus hold the document restoring his commercial driver's license. He looked at her and asked whether the 11 armored vehicles had saved them. Naomi shook her head. "No. Evidence saved us. The vehicles only made certain the evidence survived." 18 months later, Naomi returned to the same stretch of Virginia highway where Holloway had tried to force her off the road. The pavement had been resurfaced, the damaged shoulder repaired, and new cameras had been installed at both approaches to the training corridor. The afternoon was clear this time, with warm sunlight across the fields and no emergency lights reflecting from the asphalt. Marcus Hill stood beside her holding the final court order that cleared his record and restored his commercial driver's license. He had returned to work for a regional delivery company and now trained new drivers on how to document roadside incidents without escalating them. Sergeant Olivia Ramirez had been promoted to lead an independent evidence preservation unit, where vehicle recordings were copied automatically before local supervisors could alter or remove them. Every transfer of military equipment now required digital approval from 2 separate agencies, and each serial number could be traced through a public accountability system. The changes did not erase what had happened, but they made the same pattern harder to repeat. Marcus looked down the road and said, "For 2 years, I believed I had lost everything because nobody important saw what happened." Naomi turned toward him. "You were important. The system simply failed to act like it." A patrol car approached from the west at the posted speed limit. Its recording indicator was clearly visible behind the windshield. The officer inside slowed briefly near the shoulder, checked that Naomi and Marcus were safe, then continued without stopping. Marcus watched it disappear around the curve. "That feels different," he said. "It is supposed to," Naomi replied. Holloway and Vance had both faced federal charges for obstruction, falsifying records, misuse of government property, and civil rights violations. Their cases had not ended with dramatic speeches or public humiliation. They ended with verified evidence, sworn testimony, and records that could no longer be rewritten. Several officers who had ignored misconduct were disciplined, while others entered agreements requiring cooperation with the broader investigation. The logistics employee who had warned Vance about Naomi's departure admitted sending the message and helped identify additional altered transfers. The 11 armored vehicles had long since returned to ordinary training duty, but images of their disciplined formation remained associated with the day a hidden network finally became visible. Marcus unfolded the restored license and smiled for the first time since they arrived. "People still ask me whether the convoy scared Holloway into telling the truth." Naomi looked toward the road where the collision had occurred. "He never told the truth willingly. The camera did that for him." "Then what did the convoy change?" "It changed what could happen to the evidence. No one could move the vehicles, erase the recording, or isolate the witness. The truth was already there. The convoy only gave it room to survive." They stood in silence as the evening wind moved through the grass. Naomi remembered Holloway's certainty when he said he would decide what the evidence showed. He had believed authority meant controlling the first version of the story. He had believed a uniform could transform intention into accident and suspicion into guilt. But evidence had no loyalty to rank, race, or reputation. It preserved direction, distance, timing, and words. Marcus folded the license and placed it carefully inside his jacket. "I used to think justice was the moment someone powerful arrived," he said. Naomi shook her head. "Justice is what remains after power leaves." The road stretched ahead of them, open and ordinary. Holloway had used one vehicle to push the truth aside. 11 others had arrived to protect the scene, but in the end, it was not armor that defeated him. It was a camera that kept watching, a sergeant who refused to stay silent, and people once dismissed as unimportant who finally had their stories preserved.